Welcome to the Bookistrator, where I share the stories I love through illustration. Today's book is a spooky middle grade novel titled The Mossheart's Promise by Rebecca Mix. I'd read Mix's other novel, The Ones We Burn, and started following her on Instagram shortly after. So I saw all of the promotion for this book there as she hinted at it, when its cover was revealed and when it was released. I was so excited to get my eyes on the story inside after hearing so much about it, and it did not disappoint. In this book, you'll find a coming of age story, dark world building, the most precious potato bug in the world, a bit of horror, and plenty of bugs. With that, let's get into my illustration. For once, it feels like I didn't have computer issues with the progress of this one. Nothing crashed, no files were lost, everything recorded properly. I'm so grateful. I decided to be pretty ambitious with this project, so the lack of computer issues certainly helped to streamline the process. But I'll start blabbing now and finally tell you all what this book is about. The Mossheart's Promise is the story of a little fairy girl named Airy Mossheart. She lives in a putrid town encased in darkness, with dangerous tribes of bugs flanking them on every side. There's not enough to eat, not enough light, and too much of a wasting sickness that took her father a few years previously. Now, with her beloved mother suffering from the same sickness, Ari decides to brave the darkness surrounding her home and search for a cure. Her grandmother made the same trek in her youth to a magical pool of water, brimming with healing. Ari brings her bucket hat, seedling shovel, and a glowing mushroom lamp to aid her journey. She's accompanied by the best side character of all time, Shrimp, the potato bug, and her frenemy, a little fairy boy named Owl. Airy negotiates with newts, runs from earwigs and beetles, escapes an ant nest, but the most dangerous creature in their subterranean world may just be the secret her grandmother never shared. This book was delightfully spooky and dark. It was gross, especially when it came to the descriptions of the mold disease people and plants were suffering from. There are definitely some mild elements of horror to this story as well, so I'd potentially advise parents to read it before handing it off to their eager little ones to read. But I would have devoured this book as a kid myself, as I've always gravitated towards the books that were a little darker, even though my imagination was very overactive and the nightmares were very common. This book deals with loss, lies, and love, full to the brim with everything Mix herself is passionate about. While I read this book, I took notes in my sketchbook as usual, trying to piece together what this world looked like, what Airy looked like. I always keep my eyes peeled when I read books now, looking for any crumbs of description so that I can faithfully draw the characters inside. There's a modern trend, however, where characters' appearances are usually peppered throughout the book, instead of a solid text block anywhere, if it's even mentioned at all. The next time you read a book, see if you could draw the characters from the descriptions alone. I've really been relying on a lot of authors I've contacted lately to give me more thorough descriptions. But Mix does a great job, and so did the cover illustrator, Kathleen McAllister, in conveying her appearance. I cobbled together what I could from both of those sources to create my take on our leading character. I especially liked creating my take on the glowing mushroom lamp and her little shovel, both of which I'm happy with the end designs for, once I finally figured out her hand. My idea for the whole piece was a book cover design. This is not a snub to the illustrator Kathleen McAllister, who has done a lovely job with the official cover. I like to challenge myself with the prompt, though. What would I do if I was given this project? What kind of cover would I create? To me, books are a window into the soul of the story inside. They should indicate tone, give an idea about the setting, and specify genre and intended audience age. All of those things are accomplished in the original cover. I simply wanted to take a crack at it myself. So I started sketching. I hadn't settled on a cover project initially, floating out several ideas first, like a side view of Airy walking with her little mushroom lamp raised high, with more stylized versions of a bug design in the background, as seen here on the left. I also liked the idea of creating a circular composition, with bugs making up the frame and Airy in the center. Then I thought of having one of those bug pinned boards, like so many of us did in elementary school, of a bunch of the insects found in this world, along with a pair of fairy wings. That could have been really cool, but felt like it would be a concept for a different story entirely. Finally, my mind latched onto the concept of Airy sitting on the floor of a tunnel, lamp illuminating all of the bugs scurrying along the walls and ceiling. I wanted the image to be dark, where the more you looked at it, the more insects you saw. I really wanted to ground her into this world she lives in, literally planting her in the scene, looking, just like us, at the creatures around her. Book covers are where my interests usually lie. It's the subject I discussed in my graduating thesis project back in college, and it's an endless topic I bring up with friends and family. So it felt exciting to come up with a project where I could stretch those cover enthusiast muscles. My favorite character in the book was Shrimp, the potato bug. I did little doodles of him, but never really came up with a concept with him included. So he didn't make it onto my cover. I also did a cartoony sketch of one of the newts as well, but decided to just focus on the bug side of things for this project. I wanted a variety of sizes when it came to choosing bugs. Dang, how many times am I going to have to say the word bug in this video for this illustration? Our characters interact with glowing moths, potato bugs, a centipede, ants, earwigs, and beetles in the story, so I chose a few of those that seemed to best fit the composition. Some of the sizes are wildly inaccurate to how they were described in the book. The beetles being larger and the centipede should be absolutely massive, but I shrunk them both down so that they would still fit in the structure I'd created. I had a very unpleasant afternoon one day as I worked on this, researching centipedes. I am absolutely the furthest thing from a bug person, but I'm proud to say I stuck it out in the names of art and research. You may have noticed on the screen here that I hid my centipede and beetle line art layers. I'd had a bunch of college friends, also illustration majors, over one evening and showed them this piece I was struggling with. The centipede didn't feel right to me. What were they seeing that I couldn't? These wonderful girls pointed out that drawing the actual tunnel walls would really help to solidify what the centipede would be grabbing onto. Doing that first would give me the literal perspective I needed to figure out that long, creepy guy. So I did just that. I blocked out the swirling tunnel walls and looked up reference from It's a Bug's Life to see what an anthill tunnel would look like. They are more windy than I'd initially pictured, which ended up suiting the composition better. I also used this image as a reference for texture and lighting later on. With the walls figured out, I blocked the bugs back in, hoping these angles would be more accurate. I don't get any of them in one try, but I think I find a good stopping place for each insect's line art. Side note here, I'm pretty sure insect is not an interchangeable word with bug, but I just have to say something different every once in a while or I'll go crazy. What are synonyms for bugs? Upon looking it up, my computer is supplying me with words like germ, virus, and microbe. So I guess it thinks I'm talking about a sickness, not an animal. Guess I'm stuck with bug and insect for the remainder of this video. I hope all the entomologists out there can forgive me. Also, earwig pincers are horrifying, had to say it, but now I'll stop with the bug body shaming, probably. Since I couldn't really find any specific reference of these bugs at the right angle I needed for the composition I came up with, I drew each one with all the information I had and then used my gut sense and experience to fill in the gaps of how they would look foreshortened. This beetle on the left and of course the centipede at the top gave me the most trouble. I guess I don't draw enough bugs in perspective for this to go quickly or fluidly. I got pretty good at drawing earwigs from this angle, which is a skill I don't know if I should be proud of. Now we get to see me try another attempt at drawing the silly centipede. I think part of my problem is the reference photo I used. The million little legs are very relaxed in this pose, but I was trying to draw them gripping the ceiling. So I really had to get creative and again use my experience and brain to kind of make up what it would look like. Probably not 100% accurate, but you won't even really be able to see that in the final render anyway. That's the funny thing that happens with darker illustrations. They're dark. So all this time I'm painstakingly, lovingly rendering each line will kind of be lost in the end product. That's one of the reasons I'm so excited about these videos. You guys get to see every little mistake, every beautiful line that I'm proud of before it all gets hidden by lighting and color. Before I do add the color in just a moment here, I did add another pass on the tunnel and rocks. I wanted the line weight to match all the way through the piece. Then I merged and compiled all of the lines to streamline everything and make it easier to color. Speaking of which, here we go. I started really quickly with that blue, gray, green color, as I know that would be the eventual palette, but then quickly filled it over with a warm brown. This scene is being lit by the little mushroom lamp Irie is holding, so it will be mostly blues and grays in the end. But of course, I need to paint in the local color first, the color everything would be if it was lit on a nice sunny day outside. Then I can go back in and add the shadows and lights that would be present in the piece. I have all of the bug flat colors on one layer to keep things neat, and Aerie gets her own flats along with the tunnel itself. As I was reading the Mossheart's Promise, I couldn't stop picturing it as a Leica film. Leica is the studio that brought us the stop-motion movies Coraline, Box Trolls, Kubo and the Two Strings, The Missing Link, and Paranorman. They are all on the more creepy and spooky side of kids' movies, which I love. And this book felt absolutely perfect to adapt into a stop-motion experience. The effects and textures they used in Coraline and Box Trolls specifically really felt like they would be a good fit. The mold covering everything in Aerie's home, including her mother, would be so gritty and raw in their style. Not to mention all the bugs, which would be shown in all their skittery, jittery glory. There are so many eerie lighting scenes in this book, too, like the moments with the glow moths, or when they get to the lake, or every time a newt is attacking. But the most prominent connection I made with this book and their studio was Aerie herself. She feels like a Leica protagonist. She's naive, but hopeful and has a good heart. She's quirky and the oddball of her peers. She wants change and wants a better future. But above all, she's the one who takes charge. She makes the decisions. She goes after what she wants. She's the change she wants to see in the world. These traits aren't only found in Leica protagonists, of course, but slap in a total weirdo kid in a dark world filled with things that want to bite you, and you have the right combination. Now that I've got the flats in, comes the process of coloring the line art all the way through. I still want it to be visible, of course, but lighter or darker in places than it is currently. The line art in this piece isn't the focal point, even though it's almost always my favorite part of drawing. So I needed to tone it down all over. It's supporting cast here, not the main lead, if that makes sense. Next, I add all the hatching to the tunnels, giving it that extra grit that makes it start to feel like the correct texture. But I still stay pretty abstract when it comes to all of my textures. I don't need it to literally look like dirt. I want you to get the idea without actually having to make it photorealistic. I'll go on to add texture like this all over the piece, something I don't do quite the same way in my more current work. In a few moments here, I'll be getting into the lighting aspects of this piece. The sole light source is the little mushroom lamp, with shadows swirling around that focal point. I wanted everything in the composition to be in a circle. The tunnel walls, the bugs, and the lighting itself. The only thing vertical is Aerie herself, pausing the flow of the illustration and causing your eyes to pause on her. This will be emphasized even more when the light comes fully into play. For now, I'm focusing on where the light would be the strongest and moving out from there. Then I'll do the same with the shadows. The darkest part of the piece being that gaping hole in the tunnel mouth and radiating from there outwards, as with everything else in this illustration, in a circular pattern. But the most important thing I add here is a blue filter that ties everything together and gives the light source power. It's a blue lamp, so the lighting in the tunnel will also be blue. As we get close to the end here, I wanted to make a special mention toward Rebecca Mix, the author herself. I talked about how I found this book at the beginning of the video. I read another story of hers that led me to following her on Instagram. Because of that, I got to see a lot of milestones and celebrations and stories wound around this little book. One post in particular stands out to me, giving this book a deeper context that I'd like to share with you all. Mix fell in 2019 and sustained an extreme brain injury. She couldn't read, write, or do much of anything. This could have been a career-ending injury. It caused a lot of fear and uncertainty, and in her own words, "Then one day I was laying in bed, looking at this little moldy terrarium on my desk and thought, it would really suck to be stuck in one of those." And like a lightning strike, Aerie Mossheart was born. She struggled to write even a few words, as light and movement were extremely painful and difficult. A lot of this book was written with voice dictation, which I think adds to the feeling of darkness throughout the story itself, as there are many times where the characters themselves are surrounded in darkness. A sentence would require a break right after writing, and she needed a lot of time resting in between, with the room spinning around her. This story carried her through a desperately dark time in her journey. It helped her stay an author, something she had been working towards her whole life. Again, in her own words, slowly, page by page, I built a book, and I got better. I poured my heart and my soul into this story about this girl who was just lost in this dark, dying world, fighting her way towards the light. While Mix herself wasn't trapped in an underground world covered in bugs and mold, her injury and the following pandemic feel like poignant parallels to me. The dedication of this book is for anyone hoping to find the sun, which is so pertinent to people all over the world with any kind of struggle. Keep trying, my friends. I've been laughed at for liking fiction and, in particular, fantasy many times in my life. It's a genre seen by many as lesser, cheap and silly, only escapist. But to me, fantasy is not only a fun place to spend my time, but a roadmap to help us all deal with the world we actually live in. Mix is a prime example of that. Her novel will also teach those who read it with intent to see those bits of light in the darkness. It challenges the thought, who matters? The people we love? People who look like us or think like us? Our allies? Or is it everyone? You matter, even if you're not the chosen one prophesied to save the world from a horrible mold sickness. Even if you're stuck in bed and only having gotten one thing done you wanted to do today. The best line in the book to me is a quote I'll share here. What if that was what bravery was? Not a lack of fear, but just love shouting louder. How incredible is that concept? We can find truth everywhere we look, including a fantasy novel written for children by a woman with a horrific brain injury. Definitely pick up this book at your local library, a bookstore, or online if it sounds interesting to you. And with that, let's get a closer look at the final result. Thank you guys for being here. So excited to have another video finished and out here for people to watch and listen to. Go give our author Rebecca Mix some love. Links are below to her socials and places you can find her books. See you in the next one. Bye.